should we move on? I've got something for lap 17.
Okay.
If I may. If you've got nothing
it.
before that. Oh, hit me with it. You mean hit my front wing off, Alex Albon? Controversial.
Well, this is after he already had to stop because he'd already had a big lock up into turn 1. We actually heard it on the broadcast. It was like, proper.
He had multiple lockups into turn 1 and
should we just make this our Albon spot?
Oh, no.
We need to talk about Albon.
Well, he retires in a couple of laps' time anyway, which is interesting. But
he did actually already clip Ricciardo early on.
Did he?
I think you already mentioned that. Yeah, they did actually make contact at one point. This was again after a big lockup. They had 2 pretty big ones. Again, Albon had to stop early. It was about lap 9 where he had to go onto the mediums.
Indeed.
We've seen him do that multiple times where he'd had to stop early because tyres weren't working.
It's like his classic strategy, isn't it? Like, Alex is cocked up into the first
it's some strategy, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, blimey. And we're going to go to the end of the race on a set of tyres, which they've done no running on. But Kvyat. So Kvyat goes deep into the chicane and comes back onto the track pretty safely, actually. Does straight line it a little bit, but keeps it under control, doesn't bring anything onto the track and keeps it. He then goes to the left-hand side of the track. And obviously Alex Albon who's made that chicane, has great momentum and is going to go for the overtake. And this is all happening before the penultimate corner. So with Kvyat back on the racing line, Alex goes for the overtake and Alex does go for the overtake and comes back onto the racing line, but just a little bit early. And Alex's rear left tyre clips Kvyat's front wing, knocking the whole thing off. And Alex just drives on by with no puncture. And I get flashbacks to Spa when Nico and Hamilton were going side by side, and they had the slightest of Nico's front wing clipped Lewis's rear tyre, and he had a catastrophic tyre failure. And it was pretty bad, but it was the slightest of touches. And now we've seen some incidents going forward with Alex and with other drivers hitting front wings.
Remember what happened with the Ferraris in Brazil last year, where they had a tiny touch of each other? Yeah. They were both smashed up because of it.
They blew up, didn't they?
They were going a lot faster, to be fair. They were going a lot faster.
True. But Alex somehow, he came across way too early. It reminds me of myself cycling to work and a lorry overtakes me. I pray to God that they don't come in too early and knock me off. But that's exactly what happened. Knocked off his front wing, got away scot-free without a puncture. And then Kvyat, bless him, he was actually before the pit entrance. The white line was solid. So technically, I don't think he could have crossed it, but I don't think he would have got a penalty for actually diving into the pit lane and going for a wing replacement, because it was arguably a little bit unsafe it wasn't unsafe. The wing came off and was off the racing line, but
he might have had difficulty turning in like that, though. I mean, with no front wing.
But it was over within 3 seconds, wasn't it? By the time Alex had come across and Kvyat had noticed that his front wing was, cascading across the track, he had to do a whole lap without a front wing, which, again, at the Nürburgring, turn 1 would have been absolutely ridiculous with no front end. And Alex Albon, just another one of his. I can only assume
that he cut in too early, probably thinking that Kvyat, having been on the grass, would be slower coming out of the corner and thus be further back.
But Kvyat was on the track. Kvyat was on the tarmac. All 4 wheels were on the tarmac when Alex made that overtake. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Alex had 2 mirrors left on his car. Yeah. So could he not just check that he had made the pass?
I mean, it was just jumping in too early, basically.
It was an amateur mistake, and unfortunately, this just summarised Alex's race. With the multiple lockups into turn 1, collecting Ricciardo slightly,
another lockup trying to get past Gasly as well.
Yeah, as soon as and that was on the mediums, wasn't it? That was on the mediums. So he just boxed. He went from softs and mediums, and then locked up his mediums, and it was just unbelievable. I don't want to turn this into an Alex Albon, hating on him every single podcast, but he manages to do something every single race, which I think you shouldn't be in that car now. You're not performing the way you should be. That was a genuine amateur mistake. That wasn't bad luck. The lockups were mistakes. You can blame that on the conditions. Hitting Ricciardo was an accident, but coming across in front of another car, it's dangerous driving. He took a car potentially out of that race. It was not good. What's your thoughts on the matter, Alex, before I rant for another 5 minutes?
The optics on Albon's situation were made further worse still with 5 little words over the radio.
Oh my goodness.
With the words,
Oh my
they race
goodness.
me so hard, I think that Alex Albon has obliterated quite a considerable amount of the sympathy that a lot of people might have had for him. You cannot complain that you have to race people when you're on a racing track.
It's
What are you
Formula
talking
1.
about? I mean,
Oh my
Brundle himself
goodness.
said on the broadcast, he was like, welcome to Formula 1, mate. Like,
Oh,
where do you think you are?
it sounded so disheartening as well. It was like,
And Gasly,
they
of all
raced me
people.
so hard. I'm like, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You're in Formula 1. You're in a top 3 team. And like you said, it was against Gasly as well. And I just think, Alex, as much as I've tried to, I'm going to say it right now, I'm making a bold claim. Like, he doesn't deserve that seat anymore. I've tried to stay optimistic throughout this whole season that he's learning. He's actually had a lot of time out of the car. He's only been in it for one season with like a 6-month break. But when, Hulkenberg comes in, barely driving the racing point this year and has a decent race and, doesn't hit anyone, doesn't make any mistakes. But Albon, who's been in the race every single year, every single race this year and is making schoolboy errors, it's not good anymore. It's getting a bit silly. Red Bull needs to switch up their driver program because it's just not working again.
Yeah, Albon looked really shaken in the post-race interview. Obviously, and understandably, there's a lot of pressure on him again. I think Red Bull will probably keep him there for the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to get rid of him. Obviously, he was retired shortly after the team reported that a stone had punctured a radiator and was likely to cause an engine issue. I don't necessarily disbelieve this. I mean, the rumor mill started spinning so fast that it could become a new form of power. I think a new power source could be formed with the speed at which people were rifling off their suspicions. I don't necessarily disbelieve what Red Bull said. It's entirely possible. I don't think they would retire a car without
Just for the
good
sake of
reason. Like, there was
No.
still an opportunity for Albon to get some decent points for the team. I don't see why they would turn that down unless they really had to. But yeah, huge question marks above Albon. I can see him going the rest of the season, but I think the likelihood of him being in that Red Bull next season is rapidly approaching zero at the current rate. And like I say, he has not won himself any fans by complaining about having to race his direct competitors. There's a reason why cars don't really fight Max when they see him in their mirrors, because that guy is rapid and he will just go past you anyway. The same cannot
with
really
any
be said
means
for
necessary.
Albon.
Yeah.
And to
I
be fair
completely
to him,
agree.
his race pace is generally quite good. Albon's race pace has been strong. He did do
The
well in
pace is
qualifying
good, but
this time.
the craft isn't there. There's a difference between race pace and race craft. The race craft isn't there. You can't be on the radio on lap 17 or this was before it and saying they raced me so hard. That's a guy who's admitted defeat, especially when you've got Hulkenberg coming into this race with 4 laps experience and he's doing a better job. Hulkenberg to Red Bull for 2021. Absolutely Hulkenberg.
Oh, I wouldn't put Hulkenberg, but okay.
I think maybe this should be an RPM roundup, but I think the Red
people
Bull
have got a
program
bit too
needs to
excited
change.
about Hulkenberg coming back. Like, yeah, he's good, but he also did a lot of races and didn't get a podium himself. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. I'm aware, and maybe I've jumped on the hype too much, but it just screams out that you've got drivers who
I think
who
I'd
have
put
the
Perez
potential.
in that seat myself.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about Perez. To be fair, it's a shame that he's losing a seat next year as well. Blimey, everything's changing. But
so Albon, yeah, I think he retired, but obviously I believe what Red Bull said about the issue. I don't see why they'd retire their car without a good reason.